This program starts now.
Hello everyone, this is Sai Kripa. Welcome to the 22nd episode of Hyderabad Runners weekly webinar series, Beyond the Track. Hyderabad Runners, founded in May 2007, is the first group in India to institutionalize running with a mission to promote running as a preferred form of exercise among people. Hyderabad Runners has been doing this through its local running groups and mentors all over the city and have been supporting running groups outside Hyderabad too. As part of our initiatives to keep you constantly aware and educated in these uncertain and turbulent times of the COVID-19, we bring you Beyond the Track, a live webinar series of conversations with some of the highly distinguished experts from running and related sports to help equip yourself with both knowledge as well as practical training. In this 22nd episode of Beyond the Track, we are honored to connect you live to former South African cricketer and coach, Mr. Gary Kirsten. Without further ado, I'd like to invite Mr. Sanjay Fuloria, one of our active runners, who's a professor at ICFI Hyderabad, to introduce and welcome our guest. Over to you, Mr. Sanjay.
Thank you, Sai Kripa. A very warm welcome to Gary on behalf of Hyderabad Runners. Gary doesn't need any introduction, especially to an Indian audience. After all, he was the coach of the World Cup winning Indian cricket team in 2011. What is not known about Gary, at least I didn't know that, is his running prowess. He is a full marathoner to boot, and that too a very fast one. His personal best is 3 hours and 35 minutes. Of late, he has taken up mountain biking, which is another adventure altogether. While preparing for this session, I got another insight about him. His coach, while he was part of the South African cricket team, absolutely abhorred long distance running. He clearly told Gary not to run more than what was prescribed. You know what happened? Gary would run the distance of his choice, obviously more than the prescribed one, and always hide the actual distance covered from his coach. We would hear more about all this during today's discussion with Gary. Gary played more than 100 tests and close to 200 ODIs for South Africa during an 11-year international cricket playing career. He scored more than 7,000 test runs. After coaching the Indian cricket team, Gary returned home to coach the South African national team from 2011 to 2013. And during his time as coach, Cricket South Africa reached #1 in the ICC Test rankings. Gary has also coached cricket teams in franchisee cricket, both in Australia and in India. He was described by MS Dhoni as the best thing to happen to Indian cricket. There are numerous other testimonials of his leadership insights from organizations around the world. Gary continues to make an impact with his humility and with his views on team culture and leadership. Forrest Gump, in the eponymous movie, says when he stops running, "I am tired, I am going home." I can assure you, Gary is neither tired nor going home anytime soon. Now, let's start the conversation with Gary. How are you, Gary?
All right, and you?
Good afternoon, Gary.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you clearly, Gary.
Good.
So, in the midst of this pandemic, how are you maintaining your fitness and carrying out your coaching activities, Gary?
Well, I think we're fortunate that we can, we can still get out a little bit. Obviously, in South Africa, we at level 2 in the pandemic, which allows some freedom of movement.
Okay.
We're actually about to move to level 1, so. Okay. That kind of allows you to get out and still exercise, which I think has been very important for me. So apart from the hard lockdown, which was quite challenging for us all, I was actually at that point in the hard lockdown in South Africa. I was out in a rural area.
Okay.
So there was no one around. So I was still able to get on my bike and ride and do as much riding as I wanted to.
Okay. So are you continuing with the coaching activities as well, Gary?
Yes, I am. I run a coaching business, and we're doing a lot of online coaching at the moment.
Okay.
My main focus at the moment is coach education. So we're working in that space and really enjoying it.
Great, Gary. So for us Indians, we relate to how you were such an integral part of our cricket team's win in the World Cup 2011. We can never forget that. And this is so close to all our hearts. And I'm sure this must be on top of many minds to hear it from you. What was your most memorable and most cherished moment when you were coaching the Indian cricket team? If you have several experiences, could you please share those with us?
I think for me the most memorable thing was to have 3 years traveling around the country of India. I was always blown away when we would arrive in a smaller town or city, and you would have the streets lined 3-4 deep to welcome the Indian team on the bus. So that was always a memorable one. I think as well for me, it just working with some of those great players in the nets and becoming good friends of theirs was I think a really cherished moment. And I think to have got to a stage where I think the Indian players could trust me in the work that I could offer. That became very special, that I almost kind of became one of them. And I think that was, as a foreigner, that's always an amazing thing to have, to be able to get to.
Gary, which is your favorite city in India, if I may ask so?
My favorite city in India is probably Bangalore, because I think the weather is for me a bit cooler than anywhere else.
Yeah.
I don't like the humidity, so Mumbai is quite tough to stay in, and Hyderabad's quite humid as well, if I remember. But Bangalore was kind of my favorite city.
And you happened to coach RCB.
Yeah, I was very fortunate to have 2 years with RCB, and it's a city that I've come to enjoy.
Right, Gary. So what a journey it must have been for you, being from a family that played cricket to top of the order batting for South Africa, and to coaching the Indian team and the South African team, and now coaching athletes through your Gary Kirsten Cricket Academy, and you have miles to go still. What are some of your high points of this journey? So can you take us through your journey from childhood to today? Gary?
Yeah, I came from a cricket background. Can you hear me?
Yes, Gary. Yes, Gary. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
I came from a cricket background. We had a family that was very much involved in cricket. I had 4 brothers that all played cricket at first class level.
Okay.
And it was kind of I guess for us a natural progression to want to aspire to play the game at the highest level. But there's never any guarantee to that. So I kind of finished school and I was doing all right. I made all the representative teams in South Africa. Okay. But I didn't actually think I was good enough to play first class cricket. So I kind of got into other work. I did some studies and just try to get into doing sort of other things, and then I think I got to about 21, 22 years of age, and I started to work out how to score hundreds, which for a batsman is currency. That's what you need to be doing. If you can't score hundreds, you're never really going to make it. But I kind of started to work it out. I knew what my strengths and weaknesses were. I knew how to put a decent innings together, and that kind of allowed me to go on and explore playing the game at the highest level, which was obviously very exciting once I'd got to that stage.
Yeah.
And then I played. I had 11 years for South Africa, which was amazing to play international cricket. I didn't think I'd play one game, to be honest with you, and end up playing 11 games was amazing, I suppose. 11 years, should I say, was amazing. So an incredibly privileged journey.
Yeah. So Gary, another question that I always had in mind. So what was your first day in the South African dressing room like? What was it like? Were you ranked? How were the seniors? How was their behavior towards you? Can you tell us something about that?
Is that in the South African dressing room, you say?
South African dressing room. South African dressing room, Gary.
As a player or as a coach?
As a player, Gary.
Okay. Yeah, I think that first day I felt quite intimidated, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
You know, there were great players there. Some of you might remember the names. Kepler Wessels, Ansi Krunier was there. Alan Donald was there. Pat Simcox was there. Herschel Gibbs was there. So it was quite an intimidating space, to be honest. And you know, like I think for anyone who starts a new job or moves into a new space, you're always a little bit nervous and apprehensive about what you can achieve. I didn't think at that point that I belonged in the South African team, that I was good enough. And you kind of start very slowly, and then you know you do well in one game. I remember getting my first 100 at the MCG against Australia in 1993 in a one-day game, and that was for me was like it was an important milestone, because it made me realize that even in front of 60,000-70,000, I could go out in a final and do well. And I think it gave me a lot of confidence to know that from that moment on that I could go and score hundreds around the world and make contributions for the team.
How much did you score in your first match for South Africa? Do you remember that, Gary?
My first match for South Africa was a test match, and I debuted in Boxing Day in Australia at the MCG.
Okay.
And I scored 16 runs in my first innings, which was not going to impress anyone, to be honest with you.
So what did your captain say about that?
Nothing. Basically, the captain would only speak to me when I started to score some runs, which thank goodness was in the second test. I managed to get 60 odd in the first innings and a 40 in the second innings, and from that kind of moment on there, everyone started to talk to you. Oh, you're good enough to play in this team.
Was Kepler Wessels your captain then? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, right, Gary, moving on, how were you as a child, and who were your idols growing up when you were a kid?
Well, you got to remember that South Africa was in isolation then. So when I was watching my heroes play, it was no one international, because we didn't know the international players. They weren't on TV.
Correct.
We just heard about them in the media, in the print media. So there was very little exposure we had to international cricket. So all our heroes were essentially first class cricketers in South Africa. So there would be names that you wouldn't be familiar with, but I'm sure many cricket lovers would remember a guy by the name of Graham Pollock. He was a hero. Alan Lamb,
Barry Richards.
Yeah, Barry Richards. Alan Lamb ended up going to play for England for a number of years. He was kind of a hero. So many kind of local South African players.
Okay. Gary, you have run marathons in the middle of your highly intense cricket career. Tell us how and when did this fascination came into you for long distance running?
So I never ran marathons while I was playing. That was, I think it would have been too risky. They're very different sports. But I always had a fascination and an interest in long distance running. In fact, I felt for me that it was very much part of my training psyche. And my view on it was, you know, if I could go for a 10K run and spend 50 minutes out on the road, it would stand me in good stead to build some endurance fitness for when I went out to bat. So I try to match up my long distance running intensity wise with what it felt like to bat for 6-7 hours in a day. Okay. So I always felt that my long distance running, and I did it all the way through my career.
Okay.
Never long distances. I never did more than, I think the longest I would have done would have been a half marathon while I was playing. But I certainly try to do, 8 to 12 Ks pretty much, 3-4 times a week, all the way through my career. And it just gave me a good base fitness. And in many ways, I was introduced into long distance running by a friend of mine only when I was 18, 19 years of age.
Okay.
And what I really liked about it was that you know, you didn't have to run with like a massive intensity and you know, have this pain at the end of the day. You've run so hard and you're exhausted, but you could actually run fairly slowly, and you could just have a good time and enjoy it. And I think that's what got me into it. And then running kind of became, for me, it became part of my life. I didn't need to run anymore to be fit for cricket. I ran because it was a lifestyle decision for me. So I went through probably 20, 25 years where I would run, as I said, 3-4 times a week, all the way through. And it was only recently, about 7-8 years ago, where I started to get some real pain in my, I'm sure we all have that as runners, but pain in my legs, my knees really badly. And I think, and yeah, I just made the decision that I must get off my legs, and I got into mountain biking, which is a kind of a sport which is very popular in South Africa because we've got lots of mountains and there's lots of space. But it's also an endurance sport. So, you know, doing a mountain biking marathon race, you're doing 5-6 hours in a day, very similar to running. So it was a good transition for me.
So what is the distance that you cover typically in mountain biking on a day, Gary?
So every year I try ride this big event called the Cape Epic. I live in Cape Town in South Africa, and the Cape Epic is one of the it's a world recognized UCI event. Okay. The nice thing about it is the professionals ride it, but they also allow amateurs to ride. So we ride it as well. It's an 8-day event, and we do about 90 to 100 kilometers a day of riding.
Okay, for 8 days.
Yeah, for 8 days. Yeah, and it's a magnificent event. It works you over. I mean, I'm 53 now, so you've got to be fit for it. I'm actually in training at the moment because the event is in March next year. It was cancelled this year because of COVID. But it's in March next year, and I've got to do about 6 months of training, and I'm starting to do about 10 to 12 hours of riding a week now, just to get myself ready for that.
Okay. So what is your training regimen like, Gary?
Yeah, it's quite detailed. I mean, not dissimilar to training for a marathon. If you've decided that I did 7 marathons in my time. So, if you decided that you're going to, you do 60 Ks a week of training for a marathon. I don't know, so, the longer ones you'd have to do more, but it's not dissimilar. For us, it's just about time on the bike. Okay. So, I try to do 12 hours a week of riding, which means probably 5 days a week. And I'd go for 2-3 hour rides. Okay. And then on the weekends, I have one long ride, which will be about 4 or 5 hours. Okay. And what is your diet like? So you pay special attention to what you eat, what you drink? I'm sure you do. I'm less disciplined on my diet than I was in the past. That's for sure. Yeah, listen, I don't try to change my diet too much. I just think for us all, a well-balanced diet is very, very important. So I try to just make sure that I have a lot of get as much nutrition in the diet. I remember a friend of mine saying, "Are you putting clean fuel or dirty fuel into your body?" So I try and make sure that I kind of have a well-balanced diet. Lots of fresh, uncooked vegetables is very much part of that, because I think that's where you can extract most of the nutrients out of food, and then trying to put in a decent amount of protein just to keep your muscle mass up. I think recovery is always a big one when you're training extensively. So for me, I just try and make sure that I'm focused on good recovery, like a recovery diet, where you're just making sure you're putting back into your body what you've taken out. Correct. So how important do you think is the support of family when you are doing all this training and such heavy exercises, Gary? Well, because I'm doing it as an amateur now, not as a professional, it's less around, sorry, I'm going, you're just going to have to pick up the pieces. It's more around trying to find moments in the day where I can go, because I think balance is still very important. I've got 3 young kids. I'm not just going to go off for the morning riding on a weekend when they're off school. So I try to ride really early in the morning. So we generally I'll kind of get up if it's for instance, this morning I went for a 4-hour ride. I was up at 6 in the morning. It's still dark here.
Okay.
You just put the lights on and you go, and in summer I'll probably go at 5 in the morning, and then I can ride. I can get 3-4 hours of riding done by 9 o'clock when everyone's waking up in the house, so the only problem is by doing that by lunchtime I'm exhausted and need to have a sleep.
That's true. Yeah, we all feel. Yeah.
But I try and just do it wherever I can. I also don't. We got a lot of mountains here, so mountain biking. You do a lot of climbing. You do a lot of. You're riding up mountains all the time. So I'm very fortunate. From my home, 10 minutes, I'm on the mountain, so I can actually do a lot of short rides, hour and a half, 2 hours, and get 1,000 meters of climbing in, which is good. Yeah.
So Gary, how old are your kids?
My eldest boy is about to turn 17.
Okay.
My second son is 13 and my daughter is 8.
Okay, great. Now, Gary, can you share some experiences of marathons? So something that you cherish, some good experiences, some bad experiences that would be good for our audience?
Yeah, so as I said, I kind of, when I retired and became a coach, I had this idea that I wanted to run some marathons. And I had 3 years in India, essentially, not always in India, but like I was in and out of India for 2008 to 11. And I tried to run as much as I could there, but it's not easy to get on the road and run in India. You guys probably know better than I do now, but so I didn't do much then. But I think when I left India to 11, I kind of got into. I really wanted to take it on a bit, and I was with the Protea team there, and we were wherever we went around the world. I started to run much more in the week.
Okay.
And then I realized, hold on, I'm very keen to do the Two Oceans Marathon, which is a famous Cape Town marathon in South Africa.
Correct.
It's an ultra marathon, 56 kilometers.
Correct.
And I was really keen just to do one, just to see what it was like. And you have to do a qualifying race. So I was all over the world at that point, and I managed to find a qualifying race for the Two Oceans in New Zealand, in a place called New Plymouth.
Okay.
So it's a very funny story because we were actually playing. We were playing a one-day international against New Zealand. Finished at 10 o'clock that evening, and 3 of us in the team who were support staff. One was the physiotherapist, and the other one was the fitness trainer, and myself. Mm-hmm. We hopped in a car at 11 o'clock that night, and we drove 5 hours to the start of this marathon. Oh. We arrive at the town at about 4 o'clock in the morning. The marathon starts at 6. We didn't sleep. We just thought, let's just run this event, and it was a 42K race.
Okay.
And we did this marathon and finished it. It was a hard marathon. I think I did it in about 4 hours, and I felt I was really, really tired at the end of it. But then we had to get back to the team, so we finished the race, got back in the car, and drove another 5 hours back to the team
to play the next match.
Yeah, on the back of no sleep. You can imagine how tired we were. So we decided that as we were driving back this 5-hour drive, we would take kind of half an hour shifts of driving so that no one would fall asleep at the wheel.
Amazing experience, Gary. Yeah. Any other that you would like to share?
Yeah, that was my first marathon that I ever did, and then I did the Two Oceans, which was my second marathon. And I really enjoyed it. I was kind of getting into it, and I started to buy magazines for marathons around the world. And I managed to do one in Holland, which I really enjoyed because we were going on a cricket tour there. And I did a few. Cape Town is a very big outdoor city, so they've got some well-known marathons. In fact, 3 iconic marathons just in Cape Town alone.
Okay.
So I did a few of those. And as I said, I mean, I only did 7 in the end. I found running quite tough, to be honest with you. I don't have the ideal build for a runner. I've got quite big legs. So I'm a little bit bottom heavy. So it was never easy for me to run those kind of distances. Anything up to 21 Ks, I think was fine.
Okay.
But once I started getting into 30 Ks and then moving to 40, I found that my legs got really, really sore. And I don't think I was designed for that length of running. But I did it anyway, and I enjoyed it. I really kind of got into it a bit.
Okay.
And then it was, after my 7th one, I got invited to do a mountain biking race, and that was the end of the running.
Okay. So did you undergo any coaching, Gary, for marathons? Did you feel like hiring a coach and getting trained for a marathon, getting faster or something like that? No?
No, absolutely not. I was fortunate. I had 17 years of playing competitive sports. So for me, running just was a hobby,
Okay.
and mountain biking is the same. I'm not in it for performance. I'm not in it to win anything. I mean, you do want to challenge yourself. I've done some quite,
Correct.
I've tried to push myself on 21s a bit. And as you mentioned earlier, I mean, I was quite proud of a 3:35 marathon. That was my fastest time, on about 5 minutes a K. And that was kind of the speed that I try to run. I tried to do a 5 minute a K ultra 56, and
Okay.
it was too fast for me, and too long the distance.
Okay.
But your 21s, I try to kind of get under 5 minutes a K and push it a little bit more, because it's half the distance.
So Gary, you are saying that you are not built for a marathon and you finish a marathon in 3 hours, 35 minutes. That's quite a contradiction. Right, Gary. So moving on, you have done exceptionally well as a cricketer yourself, and you continue to do so as a coach and an entrepreneur. When and how did you discover you could reach here? When did you decide that you will become an entrepreneur or a coach?
I guess I retired in 2004, and I think I think from that moment on, it was then, what am I going to do? And cricket for me has been part of my life for so long. It just felt like a natural progression to get into coaching. I didn't want to be a commentator, so I got into cricket. But I've always been fascinated on the business side of things,
Okay.
So for me, it's always been a fascination to run it, to own a successful business. And
Okay.
I'm just very fortunate that I'm able to do it in the cricket space. So we built this cricket coaching business,
Okay.
and and it just continues to grow. I still do some team coaching.
Okay.
But more importantly for me is the business. It's taken us about 4 years to build this online platform. It's called Coach Ed.
Okay.
And it's a very exciting platform. We basically are providing short course modules for people to become more upskilled in cricket education. Such a big sport. I mean, in India, as you know, and but around the world, I mean, there are probably in excess of 2.5-3 million coaches in the world.
Okay.
So it's nice to be in that market, where you can add value to cricket coaches around the world, and to do it remotely. Coaching's always been a little bit about, you work physically with someone, and that's the kind of level that you go to. But I think to be able to do it remotely and touch base with people from around the world. I mean, I've been on more Zoom calls than many. I think it's been a great way to connect with people and to work.
That's right, Gary. So tell me, what are some of the most important steps involved in discovering one's own potential and unleashing it? You would know it the best, being a world-class player and a world-class coach. How do you go about doing it?
I think that's a good question. I think for everyone it's slightly different, and I think you've got to, I think potential is where passion meets talent. You know, you've got to be passionate about something, you know, and then if you've got some skill in it, you will reach your potential.
Okay.
And I suppose you probably could throw in a third circle there, that if you've got passion and you've got a bit of talent and you're prepared to put in some hard yards, you know, then you will reach your potential. And you know, for me, you know, being prepared to go through a little bit of discomfort to achieve something has never been something that I'm scared of. And I think for us all, you know, often I just think of some people that, you know, don't necessarily have a competitive spirit, but you know, it would be easy if you haven't got a goal to say, no, I don't need to do it today. You know, I'm not going to go for a run today. I don't need to. But I think, as you guys know, and people that are in running clubs, they become addicted to it. You know, it's it's something that you can't. It becomes part of your DNA, and you know, rain or shine, you're not even feeling well, but you're going to get up and go do your 20K run. You know, because that's what you've signed up for, and that's what you believe in, and you're passionate about it. You're prepared to put in the yards. I mean, I still don't know of one person that says those first 4 or 5 steps they take with their running that they enjoy it. It's always a little bit tough to get going, but then once you get going, it's, you know, it's fine. So a lot of people will make the decision not to run because they don't enjoy that first couple of 100 meters.
Correct.
But we as runners who are, or as fitness people, like, I don't mind that. I get on my bike now. I woke up this morning at 6 in the morning. I felt I could have stayed in bed. It was pretty cold.
Okay.
But you just do it, you know, it just becomes part of your DNA. And I think I've done that with everything in my life. I don't worry about the consequences of it. I just go for it.
So Gary, tell me, have you ever felt any day that today I won't do the training? Let me sleep longer. Let me miss it today. I will do it tomorrow. Has it ever happened to you?
Yeah, it probably has, but it's very seldom.
Okay.
Very seldom. I mean, if I've made a decision that I'm going to go do training, I'm going. I'm not. Nothing's going to stop me. I actually find if I don't do it, I've let myself down, and I'm grumpy the whole day. I'm sure we're all the same, you know. But I'd never miss out. I have to do it.
You have to do it, right? So Gary, next is, what are the skills most important for coaching according to you?
For coaching cricket or just coaching generally?
Coaching in general.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me, what I've learned, I mean, I've been a coach now for 16 years, and the one thing that I've learned about coaching and leadership, I suppose, in many ways, is the most effective form of leadership is not instruction.
Okay.
It's not I'm going to tell you how to do it, because the person who you're telling can only be good as your IP, but your IP might not be good enough.
Yeah.
I think the most effective form of leadership or coaching is facilitation.
Okay.
And what I mean by facilitation is how do you walk a journey with an athlete to allow them to be the best version of themselves? And that journey is not about telling them what to do necessarily. That journey is about them finding out their own true potential and finding out for themselves what are the things that is going to make them really good at whatever they decide to do. And it's our job as leaders or as coaches to facilitate that process.
Correct.
So when I work with players, I try and stay away from the tell space and operate more in, what do you think is the best thing to do in this situation? What do you think at this point in time would be the best decision to make? And try and facilitate best performance, I think.
Okay. So Gary, how do you handle a difficult player? It could be cricket or it could be any other sport. How do you handle such a player?
Generally, your difficult players come with a fair amount of insecurity, and they've been difficult because um, they don't trust you. They're not connecting with you, and they've got some other agendas.
Okay.
And I find that working with difficult players is actually one of the more challenging and enjoyable parts of the job.
Correct.
Because if you can turn a difficult player or win him over, it's a great journey for a coach to go on. And sometimes difficult players end up becoming great players, and they're becoming really nice people once you've unlocked that relationship. That there's an expectation of you to behave in a certain way.
Correct.
And if you can unlock that, and sometimes it might be some harsh words or some direct conversations, but more time than not, it requires a deep level of trust to be able to, challenge an individual who might be seeing life through his own eyes and not through other people's eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And when you can unlock that, you can actually get the best out of them. And generally, difficult players are often your most talented ones.
Yeah.
Because they're on their own mission, and they've got their own brand, and they're kind of using the environment for their own well-being. And they actually want to be in the mix, but they've got to live up to this kind of brand that they've created for themselves.
Correct. Right. So now, Gary, how was your experience coaching the Indian cricket team? Can you give us some examples?
Yeah, I mean, it was an incredible privilege over 3 years. I remember arriving with a team in Australia way back in late 2007. And the one thing I always found about the Indian players was that they're very respectful, of foreigners, and I never felt disrespected in the environment. But I did also realize that, this was a team that required some shifts to become the best team in the world. They were operating, I felt, at kind of 75% of their potential. Okay. And we needed to unlock that other 25%. And I think we discovered as a group that where we could find that, and we ended up finding it in getting a group of players to play for the name on the front of the shirt, not on the back of the shirt. And it was as simple as that. The behavior started to shift because the front of the shirt became more relevant than their own personal performances. So, as an example, you would have someone like Ishant Sharma, who batted 10 and 11 for us, working on his batting, because it was very important for him to be able to make a contribution at the back end of an innings.
Correct.
But when I arrived there, he would arrive at practice with these bowling boots. And I said, well, you are a bowler. That is your core skill, but you're also going to arrive with your bat and pad, because I need you to bat and save us a game at some point. Mm-hmm. And I mean, there was a great story around that. We played Australia in 2010, and in Mohali, and we were in big trouble, 120 for 8, chasing 210 to win the game.
Okay.
And Ishant Sharma walked to the crease, but he had been working on his batting. Okay. And he ended up putting on a partnership of, 70, 80 runs with VVS Laxman. I think he scored 4 in the entire partnership, batted for 45 balls, but stuck around and didn't get out, which allowed Laxman to score the runs on the other end, and we end up winning that game.
That's great.
And that was a great example of the way we kind of shifted the team. Every behavior was monitored, and people started to operate as a group of people rather than a bunch of individuals. And we had a huge amount of fun along the way. By the way, we never took ourselves too seriously.
Can you give us some examples, Gary? That would be very interesting to hear from you.
Yeah, that's all. What goes on tour stays on tour. Eh? So we don't share that into the public space, but yeah, we had a lot of fun. I think there's um, every one of those individuals, when you're together for so long, and you're spending so much time together, you learn to enjoy yourself as well as much as you can. So we had a lot of laughs along the way. We try to keep the environment nice and light, and the energy light, and allow people's talent to express itself, which is ultimately what you want.
Did you ever get angry at any Indian player because of a bad innings or bad bowling?
No, I never got angry from bad performances, but I used to get angry with bad behaviors. Okay. You know, if you're trying to drive a set of values through a group of people or a team environment, when people transgress that, then I get very angry, because we've all got to live to a way of doing things. And if that's co-created, that wasn't my instruction, that was co-created. And if someone transgressed about a value through errant behavior in a warm-up soccer game where he got overly competitive and criticized one of his teammates, I would come down heavy on that.
Okay.
Because it was just it's unacceptable in a team environment when we're all trying to live to a specific set of values.
That's great.
Sometimes players don't like to get dropped either. You know, it's always difficult conversations when you leave someone out of a team.
Correct.
I try to be upfront about that and just make sure that I was always available to talk to the guy before we announced it, that you know, that he wasn't being picked. Some guys disagreed with the selections, but you know, as a leader, you've got to stand your ground, whether the decision's right or wrong. You've got to stand your ground and give good reason and provide good clarity for the way forward for them as well.
Yeah. And how important is the relation of the coach with the captain, especially in cricket?
It's the most important relationship in a cricket team, because the coach does all the work off the field and the captain all the work on the field. So preparing for performance is a massive task. And then going out and performing is a massive task as well. So I think the captain-coach relationship, they have to be in sync. Even just this picture on the screen now, I've always had a good relationship with Virat. We had a tough year last year where we lost a lot of games in the IPL initially, and then we were able to pull it back, and we started to get something going, and then they fired me, so that's cool. And then with MS, I mean, our relationship was very close over many years, but I think he started to, as time moved on, he started to trust me more and more in terms of what I could offer him, and we just had a good time. We were very kind of very similar personalities, both fairly quiet, and stayed away from all the attention, but really cared about our team and what we wanted to do with it.
So Gary, are you still in touch with Indian cricketers? And who is your favorite Indian cricketer?
Yeah, it's difficult to say because I got on with all of them, but I had a very close relationship with Sachin. There's a picture up there. I think I arrived in the team where he was having a tumultuous time with the previous coach. And I played a lot of cricket against Sachin. So we kind of knew each other a little bit there. But I think he just saw me as a friend, and I think he was looking for that. I always asked him, how are we going to get the best out of you in the next few years? What do you need, for us to get the best out of you? And he was very articulate around that. So we provided that for him and helped him on his journey. I became very good friends with Sachin. And, he got 18 international hundreds in those 3 years. 2008 to 2011. So his performances were exceptional, but he was enjoying himself. I mean, that's a very cool picture because he was enjoying himself, and I think when international sportsmen enjoy what they're doing, then they're going to thrive.
Okay. So as we speak, Gary, the IPL has started this year. So who are you betting on? Which team is going to win this year's IPL?
Yeah, it's always different. I mean, the difference of this year's IPL is that there are no crowds and there's no home games. So I think that's a massive neutralizer. So someone like Chenna, who have built a team around very slow wickets, you know, it's going to be interesting to see how they perform on different conditions. So I think this will be the most wide open IPL ever, because the conditions will play into the other team's favors. It'll neutralize the teams. So I think it's going to be really interesting to watch. You know, Delhi Capitals had a great tournament last year. I think they've got a good squad. Obviously, your two favorite franchises are Mumbai and Chennai, but you know, Rajasthan Royals have got a really good squad as well.
Okay.
So it's going to be interesting to see. I think it's difficult to predict, you know, but you know, whoever gets on a run and gets some momentum going. But you might find that this year's IPL might have a new winner.
Okay.
Which I think will be, you know, other than Mumbai or Chennai, which will be quite fun.
So, do you plan to run another marathon anytime soon, or a half marathon, an official race, or no?
No, I'm done. I'm done with running.
Okay.
I'm done with running. I'm off my legs now.
Okay.
I actually don't run it at all anymore.
Okay.
But I am riding a lot. But it was so running, as I said, was a part of my life for 25, 30 years, you know, so it's, you know, I got a lot of benefit out of it, and I would always encourage people to run. I think it's an incredible hobby and something to get into. It's really, really good for you to, you know, just to do exercise regularly.
Yeah.
So I'm a big fan of it. And would always encourage people to do it.
So Gary, now I am done with my questions. We'll move on to the audience questions. So we have a question from Kartik Subramanian. He asks, Gary, how much of strength training do you put in to support all this training for rides?
That's a good question. And I have to admit, in my amateur space, you know, I used to spend a lot of time in gyms when I was a player. Building strength, but I'm a lazy exerciser now. I just ride. I do very little strength training. In fact, I don't like it. I get bored. But I have been told the older I get, I need to keep my muscle mass up. So I'm probably not long away from having to, you know, do something, even if it's you know, even if it's just using body weight just to keep building strength. So yeah.
Okay.
I'm not doing it very well at the moment.
So what are the mental aspects that you will suggest to runners? What are the mental aspects that they should care for or they should work on?
I think for any endurance sport, I mean, for me, there are a couple of things that are important. One is if you're doing an endurance event, your in-performance nutrition is crucial.
Okay.
And everyone's different. So everyone needs to understand what nutrition that they need to consume during an event. I've learned that the hard way, where I've had some really tough runs and rides where I haven't, you know, taken in the right nutrition. As an example, I sweat a lot.
Okay.
So I'm losing liquid and minerals out of my body at a rapid rate, and often when you're riding, you don't feel you're sweating because you know you've got that kind of that movement all the time. Running's a little bit easier to understand, but I just think understanding how you need to consume nutrition during an event's crucial. And then I think on the mental side, for me, it's more around competing with yourself. You know, I don't kind of compete with anyone. I just want to make sure that I prepare well enough, and that I'm very organized in an event. I find that if I'm really organized mentally, I'm much stronger. If I'm not sure where I am with things, I'm not that quite prepared, then I'm second guessing myself. Okay. So I think it's always nice to be really prepared. And then also you'll build confidence through doing events, you know. And then once you've built that confidence, you know that if you're going through a tough time, I always used to find in marathon running, the 30K mark was a bit of a was a bit of a time for me. 30 Ks was always a tough one. You got 12 Ks to go in a marathon, and I always find that a tough time to get over. You know,
You hit the
because your
wall,
body,
right? Hit the
yeah,
wall.
you hit the wall. Your body's starting to get sore.
Mhm.
And you've kind of just got to you've got to get yourself to 35, 36, and then you don't have long to go. But those 5Ks I always found was a tough time for me. So I tried not to push too hard between 30 and 35 Ks.
Okay.
I used to take it easy and just slow down a little bit. And then if I was feeling good at 35, then I would push the last 7. Yeah, so I suppose that's a race strategy. I suppose we all need that.
So who were your running mates, Gary, during your running days?
Well, very few cricketers, because cricketers don't like to run. So yeah, I mean, in the South African team, there was a lot of support staff that used to run. So we used to run most mornings. Rob Walter, who's actually been involved in IPL, Brandon Jackson, who was the physio. Brandon Jackson, by the way, he's still the South African team physio.
Mhm.
He has done he did 28 Comrades marathons in a row.
28.
28 in a row. For those of you who know the Comrades Marathon, it's a 90-kilometer race.
Yeah.
Ultra marathon. He did 28 in a row.
Amazing.
Yeah, and it's an amazing effort. I mean, I've never done one Comrades Marathon, but in South Africa, that is the holy grail of marathon running. If you've done a Comrades, you've made it as a marathon runner.
Correct. There's one question from Ramesh, Gary. Would like to hear your perspective on the comparison of endurance between a 5-day test match and a marathon.
Yeah, I think the comparison that I have is that it's you operating at that kind of medium intensity. You know, marathon running, you're not running at full pace. And that's what I enjoyed about running. It kind of gives you that feeling that you're doing it for a long period of time. I mean, even if you're going for a 10K run, 50 minutes, a long period of time to be on your legs.
Yeah.
And just running nonstop. And I really found comparison in that to batting for a long period of time. So I never ever while I was batting felt tired. Never.
Okay.
Because I just felt that I trained myself for endurance. So it was never an issue. I hardly ever got cramp while I was batting, and you see a lot of batsmen getting cramp now, especially in hot conditions.
Correct.
And I attribute that to my kind of as part of my training regime was just doing that long distance running.
Right. There's a question from Subhajit, Gary. What was challenging, playing cricket or coaching the Indian team? Which was more challenging for you?
Playing cricket.
Coaching was easy.
Yeah.
So Gary, one last question, and I can't let you go without asking this question. Walk us through the winning moments when the Indian team won the Cricket World Cup in 2011 when Dhoni hit that massive 6. Can you walk us through those moments just after that?
Yeah, it was a great experience and a privileged journey. I mean, I do look at that a little bit and sometimes feel a bit embarrassed that they put me on their shoulders, some of the players. I just think we had a lot of fun and we kind of knew how we could play. You know, we got comfortable not playing that well in matches and winning. We got comfortable with that, and we never expected to be absolutely perfect. And if you go through that tournament, we didn't. There was a lot. We didn't play that well through the tournament. In fact, our best game was the final. In many ways, in fact, I didn't think we bowled that well in the final either. But our bat, we kind of really hit our straps with the bat. But if I think back to the quarterfinal against Australia, you know, we were 180 for 5, chasing 260, game on the line.
Correct.
And Suresh Raina, who hadn't played much cricket, came in and put on 70 or 80 with UV. So we got ourselves across the line. And then in the semi, we actually, I thought we batted poorly and then bowled really well.
Okay.
you know, and that was kind of the mark of the team. I think if you look at that picture, you know, most of the guys in that team made, somewhere along the line, made significant contributions. Munaf Patel in the semi-final bowled these 10 overs for 35.
Correct. Correct.
You know, and Ashish Nehru, I can't see oh, there he is on the right. He had broken his finger for the final, but he had an incredible semi-final as well. He bowled really well. So I think there were a lot of guys that could. We didn't just rely on a Sehwag or a Tendulkar or a Dhoni. There were a lot of guys that could make a contribution. So we look at the Dhoni six at the end, and you know, MS himself didn't have a big tournament. He'd been pretty quiet, and then had a great last match. And I think that was the mark of the team, is that you had a large amount of guys who could make performances, bearing in mind that Yuvraj Singh was man of the series, man of the World Cup. So that would have, you know, when we picked the team, we nearly didn't pick him because he was so out of form. He almost didn't get picked for that World Cup. That's how crazy it was.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you very much, Gary, for an amazingly engaging conversation. I loved it, and I hope you did too. Now I hand over the proceedings to my colleague Naresh for the vote of thanks. Over to you, Naresh.
Well, thank you, Sanjay, for facilitating that session so graciously. You know, it was a really inspiring session. We hope you all enjoyed it. A few key insights from Gary's talk. I think the importance of being passionate and putting the effort to succeed. You know, not just having the talent. Importance of connecting to people, establish a deep level of trust to unlock the true potential, particularly with difficult players that you are coaching. Importance of relationship between the coach and the captain. You know, I think all the marathoners on the group, I think everyone would agree, the importance of in-performance nutrition. And Gary, I think extremely interesting thoughts on IPL. Absolutely sure about, or interested about the it being an open tournament and hopefully having a new champion. And surprised we didn't mention RCB there, or we didn't talk about it. And so on behalf of Hyderabad runners and the entire audience, thank you, Gary. These were extremely valuable inputs. Our deepest gratitude for taking your time out from this busy schedule to share your experiences and learnings with us today. Being a club cricketer myself and a runner, I think I really appreciate how enlightening this talk was. You know, on a lighter note, thank you for the World Cup.
Thank you.
To our audience today, thank you for choosing to spend your Saturday evening with us. We know it's an IPL start day night, but thank you so much for being with us. Please feel free to ask any additional questions you have for Gary on the comment section, and we'll work it out to get the answers for you. The recordings for this webinar will be available on the Hyderabad Runners Facebook page and also on the Airtel Hyderabad Marathon YouTube page. You can come back and watch it again, share it on your social media, and this can greatly benefit your friends. And Gary, I think you should, at some point of time, should you take back to running, you should run the Airtel Hyderabad Marathon. You're always welcome here.
Thank you.
Before we wind up, we'd request all the members to take the necessary precautions to be safe and healthy, considering the number of cases that are increasing across the world. We'll be back next Saturday with yet another expert and yet another interesting topic for you. Week after week, just as you marked your Sunday mornings for the Sunday long runs, you can mark your Saturday evenings for the Beyond the Track webinars. We hope to see you every single Saturday. And a quick information on that front, Hyderabad Runners is initiating a resilience run based on the Fit India movement initiated by the Government of India. Spanned over a month from 20th September to 20th October. Resilience runs is a hope to enable you get back on the road. Please visit the Hyderabad.com for further details. Until then, this is Naresh from Hyderabad Runners signing off. Stay safe and stay healthy. Bye-bye.
Stop the live streaming. We can all turn on and speak.
To enable you get back on the road. Please visit the Hyderabad.com for further details. Wow. Until then, this is Naresh from Hyderabad Runners signing off. Stay safe and stay healthy. Bye-bye.
Somebody is doing the Facebook, I think. So that's the lag.
Yeah, I think there's a 15-second lag, I believe. Yeah.
I can't start my video.
Just
Meera.
a sec, just a sec, Sanjay.
Thank you.
Mine too, Niranjan.
Yeah, turning on, one by one, everyone.
Yeah.
Right. So thank you so much, Gary. That was a brilliant one. Thank you. Hats off. A wonderful.
Only a pleasure. Only a pleasure.
Thank you, Gary, for your time and appreciate.
Okay, Rajesh.
You were supposed to run the Hyderabad marathon long ago, but then I guess you've given up. But let's hope, if at all in the future you come here. If not a full, you can probably try and half at least.
Oh, maybe a half.
Yeah. So, Gary, there's one question from somebody on the recovery diet, which is quite interesting. It just went off. It just states that you mentioned about recovery diet. Did you focus on that while you were playing cricket as well? Or is it something you started doing as a marathon runner and now as a mountain biker? What's your recovery diet now?
Yeah, I think it's more relevant with your endurance events. I mean, I did focus. I think I've always eaten pretty well, and been quite disciplined around it. But maybe less disciplined now. But certainly, if I'm in performance like these big mountain biking races, the recovery is very important. So your first 30 minutes at the end of the event is crucial, and then your recovery. We've had some stages in these mountain bikes when you're on your bike for 7-8 hours in the day, and then you've got to get ready for the next day, and the recovery is crucial. So for me, that first 30-40 minutes where you kind of you're building your protein base up again as much as possible. I just eat a lot of meat at that time, and then also just these milkshakes, protein milkshakes, and
so immediately after the workout, you take the protein milkshakes and things like that.
Yeah. 30 minutes of the end of the ride. Just to build up your recovery.
Okay, nice. On this forum, we have quite a few cyclists, and we have a couple of them who are super randomiers, and they've done 1,000-kilometer biking.
Yes. Well, there you go. That's proper.
Nikhil is here. Shiva is here. I don't know if Niranjan has done. Sundar, you have done?
Nilima has done. I have only done a 200.
So Nilima is one of the first in this part of the country to do 1,000-kilometer, and also a super randonier amongst women.
Hello, Gary.
Nice.
Wow.
Are you?
So do you also do long distance, like the road biking? The PVP?
I don't do road biking. I just do mountain biking. The reason why I don't do road biking is because I don't think it's entirely safe in South Africa.
Yeah.
We've got big open roads here and cars. It's not like India, where I suppose you've got open roads in India as well. But I just find here cars drive so fast here. So I like to stay off the roads.
Okay.
So I'd rather take my chances on the mountain.
You're lucky to live in a place where you got the mountains and the sea and the normal thing, and you also got a jungle trail also nearby.
Yeah, I'm actually interested. There's a Himalayan mountain biking race which I'm looking at. It looks like
nice.
It looks like a really tough race, but I'm keeping that on my bucket list at some point.
Sure. I'm sure there are quite a few people in our group who will be quite interested in joining you for that effort. I know quite a few about that.
Absolutely.
So, any questions from anybody to Gary?
Yeah, I'm a big cricket fan, Gary, and I would like one question. I'd like to ask one question, that is, you hit quite many runs, many centuries, 50s, lots of them, and many were boundaries. But I saw that you didn't hit too many sixes. Any reason why you didn't choose to go for the maximum?
Yeah, I mean, it's first of all, I wasn't the strongest hitter of a ball, you know. So it was probably something that I knew that if I was going to miss hit, if I was hitting in the air and I was mishitting, I was probably going to get out. So I'd rather keep it on the ground. But also, I was more a test match cricketer than what you see in T20
Absolutely,
cricket these
very
days.
patient. Yeah, many times when I used to watch you, I used to wish you wish you were out very quicker. Yeah.
I have something to add on that, Niranjan. Are you done, Niranjan? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm done.
No, I was telling one of my friend about Gary's show, webinar today, and he was like, he's one player, that I've admired to the core and also disliked at the same time.
He used to build the innings wow, amazing. Lots of patience. That's off to you, Gary.
Yeah, and I think you piled on Agali in one of those matches at Eden Gardens, right? I can't forget that match for the wrong reasons. So.
Yeah, exactly.
But he more than made up by winning the World Cup, by helping our team win the World Cup.
Yeah, that was fun. I enjoyed that.
Gary, one question which I know some of them here wanted to ask, but I think we have discussed this when we were with Didi. There were two things which I wanted. One was the entire episode on apartheid and the transition, and then I remember the discussion about Hansi Kronia where you were telling, what happened and how it just went off, because you always believed in a very strong culture and high value system. So probably you might want to just kind of share it in this set of people, because they were actually very keen, and I'm just requesting you to answer them.
Yeah, I think it was a tumultuous time for us in this country. I mean, I think that's the one thing I really liked about we've always had a strong relationship with India, and I think that that goes back to the Gandhi days when he spent a lot of time in South Africa, and so I think that's something that as South Africans we've always appreciated. But it was a tumultuous time. I mean, it's we've got a divided past and a broken past, and we're still reaping the not reaping the benefits of it, but I think we're still feeling it. We're feeling the pain that has come from that divided past, and I don't think it's going to be something that's going to go away very quickly. But I think the nice thing is we're recognized internationally as a country now, which you can't, like I finished school in the middle of apartheid, as an 18-year-old, 1985. We were still very much in the throes of apartheid then. So when I look back at that time, and I just think how brainwashed I was as a young white person in this country, it was scary in many ways, very scary. So it's nice to know that we've moved on, but I think we've still got a heap of issues. We're still one of the most, our Gini coefficient, they call it, is very high, which means we're one of the highest countries where there's such a big disparity between rich and poor in the world, so that's something that we need to address. Yeah, and then I think that on the cricket side, it was very sad with Hansi Kronia when he got bust for match fixing, but it was coming. It was coming. I think it required a high profile person to be exposed to it, because they're just everywhere, and unfortunately India, there's a lot of underground gambling going on. So these guys, they set these honey traps, and they throw gifts at the players, and in those days when we weren't educated around it as players, it's easy to fall foul to it. So it was good when the checks and balances around that became really strong, and the ICC put in a lot of effort into that, which I think has been good for the game.
By any chance you plan to move to cricket politics as well, ICC for that matter?
No, I'm too shy and I'm too low key for that. I'm a businessman. That's what I am. I'm not a politician. That's for sure.
I don't think we've had any South African cricketers enter politics, right?
No,
I think we have. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Not that I know of. Have you, No, I don't think so.
Ali
So I think
Baker-
Dave Richardson and Mark Boucher played their role at ICC, I believe, but not
Dave
not
Richardson,
through politics.
Dave
Yeah.
Richardson has, yeah.
The politics, I meant politician, the member of parliament, that one.
Yeah.
Not the ICC politics and all. We're talking about the actual.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, listen, I need to shoot, guys.
Yeah, we can just have one photograph and we'll let you off.
Yeah, that'll be great. Thanks, Rajesh.
Okay, smile, say cheese. Thank you. Perfect, yeah.
Thank you, Gary.
That's all. Thank you so much for these memories.
Okay, folks, thank you. Have a good
Thank
have a
you,
good
Gary,
Gary.
thanks for your time and thanks for everything.
No
Bye,
problem.
Gary.
Take care, Rajesh.
I'll send you the recording link tomorrow.
Okay, great. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Stay on, team. Stay on, stay on.
Yeah.
So, little tough. First, the audio was not working for some reason.
And is it a problem with the
Sanjay?
laptop or is it a problem with
Yes,
the
sir.
laptop?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
No, it was working in the test that I did just as soon as the video started, and
But the music
Middle-
never came back.
yeah,
You could not press that sound sharing when you were doing that final thing.
I did.
But Niranjan, I'm okay. We were able to, I mean, Revati put it rightly. Leave the music. We have had your voice. That's important.
Yeah, true.
If the
I mean,
voice
it was-
was not audible, then it would have been a problem.
Yeah.
I guess it was okay. So once again, thanks everybody. Thanks for your time. Sanjay, Sai Krupa,
Thanks, Naresh. Sai Krupa.
Naresh, and all the team who have been supporting. Thanks a lot. And I hope you enjoyed this and hopefully next week again.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Rajesh,
What a great support.
Want to meet Gary again just to ask my set of questions.
I had a
asked
question
you
myself.
about-
man.
I asked you a question
Rajesh,
about-
everyone was talking about post-race nutrition. I wanted to know about the post-race beer.
in fact, in South Africa, all of them after a workout they do drink, but then it's limited. They just have one thing. They just have it. It's SAB. They have SAB beer, no? SAB.
SAB, yeah.
SAB.
SAB.
So they do have it. It's very normal. They do have that. In fact, it's quite common. Almost all the sports I've seen, cricket, rugby, it's like like they carry ice packs, they carry the beer.
So I do it in Hyderabad as well, Rajesh. So it's all right.
Now we know whom to run with, next time.
Which group are you from? Where do you run, Naresh?
Exactly. Now we know where to run with.
Nilima wants to join that.
He's going
Naresh,
to.
Naresh should be in
Nilima
SAG
remember-
support. Naresh
Nilima
should be in
remember-
SAG support, Sunday long run.
Nilima, remember he said he was going to give Sundar a haircut, so you know who to tag along with, right?
And
No,
Naresh, you should
Sundar
come
is so
to the-
famous. Anybody will go give him a haircut from any.
Naresh, you should come for the
If they
PCR
given a
run,
chance, you will go all the way from BHL also.
No.
anniversary run.
I will ask him to come all the way.
No, I think he's special. When did that hair?
I think it's nice. I think people, I think girls dig long hair. It's good.
So how was it? What's your feedback? Okay?
It was great. man. I think
You were unquestionable.
I couldn't ask more questions on running because he gave up. He didn't take the bait. I've given up running, so.
No, what had happened is, I mean, see, it's all again retrospective. So if you had gone deep, it's because he had a lot of, I know how much we both used to talk about running. He used to go very deep. He used to tell how were his race plans. He told about that thing, right, in that New Zealand event for the night. So he had done quite a few of those. And he was also telling me the challenges he faced on the 30K runs, what was there. And he also had problems hitting the wall because of issues of nutrition. So a lot of things which we had. So he says that, initially it was like how he had to build a different kind of mental frame while running, because in cricket and all, he had teammates, he had coach, he had all these kind of people around. and here it used to be quite frustrating. And so he wanted to get over it, and he did it. That's what he used to tell me. And then he used to ask about one more interesting thing he shared with us was one of his running mates, I don't know who it was. I don't remember the name. So he told him, like, it's just not about 42. So at that point of time, he was running his 100 meters in 13.5, 12.8 to 13.5. Then his 200 meters timing was in the range of close to 27, 28. And he says that all levels he was trying to build a personal best with a 5K, 10K, 21K. So he says that was very tough, but then he did it. And that's how in his end results in the marathons actually worked out well. And he was very close to taking up the bait for Boston. And I think that time he had an issue with his knee, and then he dropped out. Because another 10-12 minutes, he would have qualified for Boston.
Yeah. Less than 330 maybe, no? Sub 330.
336. I mean, that time the Boston was 325, 324.
Those were the days.
Yeah.
Rajesh,
never a small thing, right?
Someone asked if Graham Smith paced him for that marathon. Karthik Subramanian asked on Facebook.
So Graham Smith used to run with him. In fact, a few of his guys who after post retirement, he used to call them over for 10Ks and 5Ks.
But he said none of the cricketers ran with me. That's what he said. I don't know.
No, never ran, meaning never a race or anything.
Okay.
Days to come. Because for them, exercising is a way of life. Like Australians, 5Ks and 10Ks, they're very common.
Agreed. Yeah.
In fact, his house in Cape Town is in a very, very scenic place.
He says 5 minutes to the hill.
Yeah, I know that. I've been there.
You have been to his house?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know that.
It's a very beautiful place.
In fact, I was reading up that park runs on every Saturdays are very, very popular across South Africa. The 5K runs.
Correct. Very popular.
So I think park runs are famous across the world, Sundar. I mean, it's like how we do our Sunday runs, right? I think even UK you have tens and tens of park runs in every little day.
Naresh, we were approached by park runs 5-6 years ago to take it up in India.
Okay,
and take it, but then we won't have our identity as the challenge was Hyderabad runners park run or park runs Hyderabad runners thing. What was it? So they have a certain format. By then we were kind of deep, and he tried to see if he could push this in India because it's all voluntary based. He's a very nice guy.
Yeah. Rajesh sir,
planning to get him in one of the talks.
He did that Panchvati.
I've already approached him.
That forest park Panchvati run, that could be a park run, right?
No. Park run is an organized thing. Go check up park run. That is different.
That's different.
Park run.
Okay. I thought a national park run in a national park.
Yeah. No. This is a famous thing in the UK.
Okay.
So through us, he wanted to go into other places and all. So I told here itself we have a challenge trying to develop this now. I mean, like that's a full-time thing. That guy has been very well recognized. So I am trying to get him for one of the talks, hopefully in the next month or.
Who, sir? Who?
Swinton. His name is Swinton. Just check out his name. Parkrun. Very famous he's become. So we're trying to get him on the entire experience of trying to do something like what we have done in UK. That's the thing actually.
But again, park runs are small, are slightly shorter runs, right? None of our guys will be interested in shorter runs as long as you say. The moment you say it is 10K, people won't come in.
No, I will come.
The entire concept is nice, right? Getting started.
Yeah.
So it's a very acceptable thing. So
Scouts to 5K can graduate to park run, right?
He gets funded by the public health system. A lot of support is there for him.
Yeah.
Anyway, good guys. Thanks once again, and have a good night and a good weekend. We'll catch up again. Thanks once again.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks everyone.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, sir.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thanks, Rauti. Bye. Bye, Sundar. Bye, Nira.
Bye.